The Man Who Vanished in the Elevator extended version. It was supposed to be just another ordinary evening. Another long workday. Another routine ride home. I had finished my shift and was ready to retreat to my apartment. The building was quiet as I entered, the soft hum of fluorescent lights above casting a dull glow over the entryway. I pressed the button for the elevator, the familiar ding echoing as it arrived. I stepped inside, mindlessly tapping on my phone. Trying to ignore the lingering exhaustion from the day, the elevator doors slid shut, and I pressed the button for my floor. The elevator began its usual hum as it started moving upward. But then, something strange happened. The elevator shuddered, a small jolt that made me look up from my phone. I didn't think much of it at first. It was an old building, and the elevator had been acting up more than once. However, the shudder wasn't a fluke. It happened again. This time, it was stronger. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I looked at the floor indicator. It blinked. 3. It was stuck. The elevator had passed the 3rd floor long ago, and yet it lingered on that number. I pressed the button for the 5th floor again. Nothing. I pressed the emergency button, but there was no usual chime. The elevator stopped, completely still. The low hum of its machinery died down, leaving only silence. That silence was deafening. I felt my pulse quicken, my stomach nodding with unease. I pulled out my phone to check for service, but there was no signal. The building's wireless network was also gone. I was utterly alone. The air inside the elevator grew thick, almost suffocating. My chest tightened, the weight of the quiet pressing down on me. The only sound now was my breathing, rapid and shallow. I glanced at the doors, but they remained closed. There were no other signs of life. No one else had gotten on this elevator. Just me, trapped. The elevator felt smaller now, claustrophobic even. It wasn't just the lack of movement. It was the overwhelming feeling that something was wrong. Something was off. Then, without warning, I heard it. A low, guttural hum, emanating from somewhere below. It wasn't the usual sound of the elevator's engine. This was something deeper, more unnatural. It reverberated through the metal walls, making the entire elevator shudder again. I looked around, unable to make sense of the noise. It wasn't coming from any part of the elevator I could see. It felt like it was coming from within the building itself. My heart pounded in my chest, and I pressed the emergency button once again. Still, nothing happened. The elevator didn't move. It was stuck, and I was trapped. The hum grew louder, closer. It felt like something or someone was trying to break through the elevator's walls. I couldn't take it any longer. My hands were trembling. My vision blurred from fear. The elevator jolted again, this time in a more violent way, and the lights flickered once more. Darkness. I was swallowed by the darkness. Absolute silence. I stood frozen, my breath coming out in shallow gasps. The hum had stopped, replaced by an eerie stillness that seemed to suffocate everything in its path. I reached my hand out, feeling around the walls, desperately trying to locate a way out. But the elevator doors remained closed, and the air felt thick, almost viscous. Suddenly, I heard a scraping noise. It was faint at first, like something dragging across the floor. The sound slowly grew louder, and my skin crawled. I was no longer alone. Something was moving in the dark. Something was coming closer. I stood frozen in place, my body paralyzed by fear. My heart raced as I strained to hear the sounds. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I could have sworn that the temperature in the elevator had dropped several degrees. Then, as if responding to my panic, The elevator lights suddenly flashed back on. For a brief moment, everything was normal. The hum was gone, and the elevator was once again moving, but when the doors opened, I was no longer in the building I knew. I stepped out into a dimly lit hallway. The walls were covered in peeling paint, and the air smelled stale. This was not the same floor I had entered. The elevator had dropped me somewhere unfamiliar. Panic surged through me as I looked around. There were doors on either side of the hallway, but they were all locked. There was no escape. I moved forward cautiously, unsure of what I would find, when I came across a door at the end of the hallway. It was old, weathered, the wood cracked and darkened with age. Above it was a plaque that read, 307. I froze. 307. I knew my building, and I knew that there was no apartment 307. There had never been an apartment 307 in this building. I could feel the blood drain from my face. This was impossible. I reached for the door handle, my fingers trembling. The door creaked open, revealing an apartment on the other side. I stepped inside. It looked exactly like my apartment. The furniture, the pictures on the walls, the layout, it was all the same. But it was different. The room felt wrong. It was cold, too cold. The air was heavy, oppressive, and there was an overwhelming sense of stillness. It was like the apartment was abandoned. The light fixtures flickered above, casting long, twisting shadows on the walls. I hesitated in the doorway. That's when I saw him, a man sitting on my couch, facing away from me. The back of his head was tilted slightly, as if he had been waiting for something. For someone. I couldn't breathe. Who was this man? I took a step forward. My voice stuck in my throat. Who are you? I managed to choke out, my voice shaky. The man didn't answer. He simply turned his head slowly. And when he faced me, I saw something that made my stomach drop. It was me. It was my face. But it wasn't me. His eyes were hollow, his expression vacant. It was a distorted version of myself, staring at me with an eerie calm. He grinned at me, and I could feel a wave of dread wash over me. His smile was wrong, twisted in a way I couldn't explain. You're late, he said in my voice. I've been waiting for you. I took a step back, my mind racing. What was happening? How could this be possible? How was this man, this thing here in my apartment? I tried to speak, but no words came out. I turned to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My body was frozen, caught in a trance. My reflection, the man on the couch, watched me with those unblinking eyes, his grin widening. Don't you remember? He asked. I've always been waiting. Suddenly, the air around me grew heavier. The walls seemed to close in on me. The apartment, my apartment, began to warp, twist. The furniture started to shift, the colors blending into something strange and unfamiliar. I turned, desperate to escape, but the door to the hallway slammed shut with a force that sent a shock through my body. I turned to face him again. He stood now, walking slowly toward me. His movements were unnaturally smooth, like his body was made of something that shouldn't have been human. His head tilted at an impossible angle. Then, just as quickly, he stopped. He was right in front of me, too close. I could feel his breath on my face, cold and foul. His eyes never left mine. You've always been here, he whispered, his voice now low and mocking. You never left. I tried to scream, but my throat was dry. The door to the hallway was gone. The elevator was gone. There was nowhere to run, and then everything went dark. Days later, I woke up in my own bed, drenched in sweat. My heart was still racing, but there was no sign of the strange events I had just witnessed. Was it all a nightmare? But the feeling of dread, the overwhelming sense that something was terribly wrong lingered. I tried to convince myself it was just a bad dream, a side effect of too much stress. But there was something in the back of my mind that wouldn't let me forget. I had to know. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I checked my phone, trying to distract myself. It was late morning already. I had overslept. But that's when I saw it. The message. A text from an unknown number. "You're supposed to be here." I froze. I checked the number, but it was blocked. No one I knew had sent the message. It was as if it had appeared out of nowhere. And then, as if responding to the chill that crept over me, the lights in my apartment flickered. For a split second, I saw something in the corner of my eye, a shadow, tall and thin, standing by the door. I whipped around, heart pounding, but there was nothing there, nothing. I grabbed my phone again, checking the time. It was the same, yet it felt as if the minutes had been swallowed up. A shiver ran down my spine. Was I still dreaming? Or was I being followed by whatever had been in that apartment? I tried to shake it off, but the feeling wouldn't leave. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I kept hearing that low hum in my head, as if it was calling me back. But to where? Back to the elevator? Back to the man who looked like me? I tried to shake it off, but the feeling wouldn't leave. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I kept hearing that low hum in my head, as if it was calling me back. But to where? Back to the elevator? Back to the man who looked like me? There was something more, something far beyond my understanding. The more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it became. This nagging sensation that there was something waiting for me, something I had yet to uncover. It felt like I had entered a parallel reality, one where the rules of time and space didn't apply. Was I stuck in some kind of loop? Had I entered a dimension where the boundaries between what was real and what was not had begun to blur? I couldn't escape the thought. Was the man, the twisted version of myself, still out there, watching me, waiting for me to come back? Or was he simply a figment of my imagination, a manifestation of my fear, my exhaustion, and my broken mind? There was no way to know for sure. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see him, his hollow eyes, the cold grin haunting me, reminding me that whatever had happened that night wasn't over. It was still with me, like a shadow I couldn't shake off. I needed answers, but the deeper I dug, the more tangled the mystery became. No one else had experienced what I had. The building seemed the same, yet it felt different, altered, as if I had crossed into a place that defied logic. Was I losing my grip on reality, or had I stumbled upon something far darker than I could ever imagine? Something that wasn't just tied to the building, but maybe to me something I couldn't outrun, no matter how hard I tried. The texts, the whispers, the strange shadows that seemed to flicker in the corners of my vision, all of it was starting to feel like an inescapable nightmare. I kept asking myself if I could move on, if I could live a normal life again. But how could I? Every step I took seemed to lead me closer to the truth, yet farther away from safety. The questions kept multiplying. Why was I the one chosen for this strange encounter? And why had it happened now? Could I ever find peace again, or would I always be trapped in this terrifying game of cat and mouse? The mystery deepened as time passed. The unease lingered like an unwanted guest, creeping into my thoughts when I least expected it. I found myself checking the elevator every time I entered the building, half expecting it to stop, half expecting the darkness to return, to take me back to that same twisted place. But I knew deep down that I couldn't keep living in fear. I had to confront whatever it was that had happened. There was no other choice. So here I am now, still looking for answers. I don't know if I'll ever get them, but I know I can't give up. Whatever happened that night, whatever this is, I need to face it. I have to. Because if I don't, I might just disappear into that endless night, just like the man who vanished in the elevator. What do you think happened that night? Was it just a nightmare? Or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling stories. Who knows what other strange experiences I might share next time?